Services. We are preparing for our weekly broadcast on mental health topics. Therapy Thursday is brought to you by Affinity Counseling Services and A Lovely Pause. This is a test.
Affinity Counseling Services is located in Piggott, Arkansas, and Kennett, Missouri. We currently have 4 therapists in our office and are taking new clients. To join our waiting list, visit counselingwithaffinity.com, and to find out more, call us at 870-324-5122, or for our Missouri location, 573-840-0440.
A Lovely Pause is a local nonprofit created to provide community education, awareness, coping skills, support to people with PTSD and other trauma-related disorders. This month, subscribers to our newsletter, The Pause, will receive free Relationship Goals worksheet. Use our worksheet to keep up with what you learn on Therapy Thursday this month and make future goals with our relationship bucket list. Visit us online at alovelypause.com or on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube.
All right, we sound good.
Therapy Thursday normalizes discussing mental health topics in a safe, supportive environment because not being normal is normal.
Welcome, everyone, to Therapy Thursday, our weekly installment here at Affinity Counseling Services, where we talk about different mental health topics from a personal and professional perspective. My name is Matthew Yount, President and Lead Therapist here at Affinity Counseling Services. To my right is my wife, Andrea, Vice President of Affinity Counseling and President of A Lovely Pause. And to my further right is Stacy, Marketing Director here at Affinity Counseling and Vice President at A Lovely Pause.
Yeah.
And behind the camera, as always, taking your comments, questions, and concerns, is Kindred, a person of multiple talents as well, our office manager and
She's the board secretary.
board secretary for A Lovely Pause. I'm going to have to... Everybody's list is getting so much longer with all the responsibilities that
I mean,
they
really,
have.
Stacy has like several more titles if you want.
True, if we want to get into that. Well, we are
Not
kind
even throwing the other side hustles in there, right?
Next Thursday, I should have a mic.
Yes, you should have a mic
Yes.
back, Kindred. Sorry about that.
The
That's-
ice storm put us back some. We still haven't received that shipment yet. So.
No, we have not. So we'll get your mic stand soon enough. And we're doing a special episode today because of the weather and COVID. A lot of things have put us behind. So
Yeah.
we're trying to get some episodes caught up. So we're going to be broadcasting today and again on Thursday like we normally do.
Right, and we talked about, in our test that this was a new topic this month. But our intro video is my bad, because that's my job. I did not update it. So our intro video needs updated. We are doing, February's topic is Grow Your Love. And today's topic is Love Me, Love Me Not.
You went off garden flower theme on this one,
We
didn't you?
did, yeah. Love Me, Love Me Not's about love languages.
Oh, okay. Well, let's see. Yeah, so we're talking about the 5 love languages today.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah, so there seems to be this trend, and maybe, I don't know if it's just a social media trend or if it's a TikTok trend or what it is, but there seems to be a trend of now people poo-pooing the 5 love languages because it's not like scientifically studied or evidenced.
Well, and there's also I get it. I get the people who are poo-poo. I mean, I don't get the poo-pooing because, I mean, really, can you just not poo-poo on things? But
Well, some things need to be poo-pooed
okay,
on.
but
But
You're
that's
being-
a
it's a little-
legitimate thing, though. The
Exactly.
love languages. I mean, it does translate well,
And-
whether or not somebody
Yes.
professionally labeled it or not.
It resonates.
well,
It
it
does.
does. And, and other people, I've seen people being like, oh, well, let's expand on those love languages. And they're like, well, my love language is somebody understanding me, which I can totally relate to, right?
Absolutely.
So, and a lot of people can relate to that kind of stuff. So, I mean, these are just a basic overview of love languages. You can create your own love language. You can be like, well, this is my love language. But talking about love languages, it just brings up the fact that there are love languages and there are ways that we interpret how love differently. And so just understanding that, regardless, you can make up your own set of love languages if you want. But this is just a good basis of where to start and what love languages are.
Because people love differently and they accept love differently. And I think that by giving it some parameters or like, you know,
Yes.
how we can talk about it is helpful to people being able to, you know, meet each other where they are needing
Yes.
to be met with loving. Because it is so different for some people, right? Because somebody might be like actions, right? Like, you know,
Exactly.
working together on something, but the other person, like, they need like words of affirmation and like, you know, and if one person's not getting one of those things, maybe the other one's feeling like they're loving them, but you know,
Exactly. And
they're
so
not feeling it.
That makes me think of a TikTok that I actually saw this morning. And it was that, and I don't know if y'all have seen it, the TikTok where it's like, or anyways, it's a TikTok and the dude's like, well, I have a acts of service love language, and my wife, I'll get it right in a minute. The man has an acts of service love language, and the wife has a physical touch love language. So he's like, I need to help you across the street. You know, that TikTok sound like they want to help you do something. Like, I need to help you cross something. I need to help you cross the street. Can I help you cross your porch? Can I help you do something?
They're using the sound from
Yes,
up.
yes. And so they're like, I need to help you do something. And so he's like wanting to help her do something. And she's like, no, I don't need help doing something. I want you to, you know, touch me or, you know, whatever, kiss me. So it's different. Like for people, you may be thinking you're trying to love them by doing something when really they just want your attention or they want your touch or something like that for that. And so what love languages does is kind of clears up that confusion because a lot of people don't think like that. You don't think, oh, I'm trying to love you. Why aren't you getting it? And that's what we think. They don't think, oh, well, they're not hearing my love because they receive it a different way.
Sure.
And so this just kind of helps us to understand that.
Okay, so we're just going to go off of the book, The 5 Love Languages. We'll just do the basics. And if we got time, we'll see if we can think of some other love languages.
Yeah. I shared a post today on all of our accounts that's got the link to the 5 love languages quiz. So if you look on Affinity or A Lovely Pause, there is a link for the 5 love languages quiz on there. And like I said, that's just a basis. Start there. See what you get.
Sure. So we'll go over, I mean, you hit the basic concept pretty well. There's these different types of languages. It's how we give and receive love. And we have preferences based on experiences or any other things that have happened maybe in our lives. But for whatever reason, we have certain preferences. And sometimes my preferences match your preferences, and sometimes they don't.
Yes, they do definitely change. I was telling Kindred earlier, 4 of my love languages are so close that they will just totally change all the time. Like sometimes one of them will be closer to the bottom and one will be closer to the top, and then they'll flip flop. It just depends on my mood, you know, what I'm feeling like. They all I understand them to be love, but sometimes I prefer one over the other. It just depends, you know. So
Oh, so you're complicated.
extremely complicated, and I require a lot of attention.
Yeah, it's funny. I walked into the bedroom the other day. I'd been out helping my uncle track a deer. Didn't find it, unfortunately. But I walked in, and I just see Andrea just staring. She's laying in bed, just staring into nowhere.
I didn't recognize he was coming. He walked in. He'd been gone for a long
I
time.
walked in the middle of a dissociation moment
I
for
was
her.
totally dissociated. Like where you're just sitting on the bed staring. That's what I was doing.
Yeah. So
It was a little embarrassing.
it's interesting, though. It's one of the first ones I've seen of those in a long time. I was like, oh, you didn't even know I was in the house.
No.
So I guess the complicated thing brought that up to my attention is like, hey. Yeah. So, yes, people can be complicated, and sometimes their love languages may shift and change, but we typically hold a primary one
Oh, yeah.
most of the time.
My primary one is words of affirmation. I know that. The rest of them, and even words of affirmation is not always at the top, but that's still my primary one. That will always get me, you know, and be like, oh, okay.
Well, let's talk about what that means, words of affirmation. So since that's your top one, why don't you try explaining that? What does that mean to you?
That means telling me that I did a good job, telling me that you see what I'm doing, telling me that you appreciate me and you appreciate my efforts and you see me. To me, that's what it means. It means you see me. If you are telling me that you see me. I need people to tell me that they see me, basically. Like,
Yeah.
I need that to know that they think I'm doing a good job, that they appreciate me, that they love me. I need that. I need people to tell me.
Okay. So it's the idea of not only getting the affirmation that you're doing well, but getting the affirmation that sometimes that you're just seen,
Right.
that you're understood.
Yes, that you're
you're
loved,
loved.
that you're valued, appreciate, all those things.
Yeah, and so this is typically done through, as it indicates, words, but it can be through writing.
Yeah.
It can be through like a cute video that
It
you
can
make
be
somebody.
through gifts, and so words of affirmation can be through lots of things, and that's why I feel like my love languages are all kind of compartmentalized, because if you do something for me, to me, that's a word of affirmation. You know what I mean? It's almost like you can get words of affirmation in different ways, but words of affirmation is the main one because that's where it all stems from for me. So if you're doing an act of service for me that could be like a word of affirmation, because it's like you see that I'm doing, you're seeing me.
Well, I
right?
would say, I would have to assume though that if that was the way that it was, that the gift or the act of service would have to be directly linked to the
Yes,
fact that
exactly.
you were being recognized for
Yes.
something that you did.
I would have to be seen. And that doesn't mean like, oh, you did so good, here's this. It's like, oh, I see that you're struggling, I'm going to do this. Oh, I see that you're feeling down, I'm going to give you this. So really, my love language is being seen and heard. Like, that's my big thing. And so for me, words of affirmation reaffirms that. And for me, that can be an acts of service or receiving a gift or something like that.
Okay. So there's words of affirmation. The next one could be quality time. So quality time is just more so spending time with someone that you care about in a means that seems quality to them. So it can be doing something. It can be observing something together, a TV show or movie, or listening to music together. It may be talking with each other like on a deep emotional level, or just having an interaction or playing games together or things like that. Quality time is just, you have to make sure that if you're going to give quality time to the person, you have to be able to define it by what they mean or what they know as being quality time. It can't just be what you think of as quality time, because the other person may not interpret that the same. So, yeah.
Well, I was just sitting here thinking about like where this might qualify at. So does quality time always have to be in person? Like for me, whenever like Andrea, for example, sent me like a really nice playlist that I'm going to check out, but like she'll send me or like, you know, videos and things that she knows that like are interest of mine, right? I guess that wouldn't be quality time necessarily, but like just taking the time out to like, you know, be like, I see you. These are things that made me think about you. That makes me feel loved.
Sure,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Like that is a love language somewhere. I just don't
Yeah.
know where it falls.
Right. So see, that's what I mean by like these 5 love language, they're a basis, but you're going to expand on them. Yours are going to be customized to you, you know? And so that's why it's good to have this conversation, and taking that first assessment will start that conversation.
Yeah.
Because then you and your partner can talk about your results and be like, oh, this is what that means for me, you know?
Right.
And so, you know, for some people, quality time is, I could see how you could indicate that would be quality time, because it's time you're going to spend listening to the things that she sent you, and then that'll help you feel like that someone has helped giving you quality time. Like, I'm giving you something to give quality to the time you're going to spend listening to this, because it's interesting, it's engaging.
Or it could be receiving gifts, because then I'm giving you something, even though it's not, because receiving gifts doesn't have to be bought. Because when I
Right.
first took this quiz, receiving gifts was my number one almost.
Well, let's just jump into that one next
and,
then.
And I was just like, well, I was a little embarrassed. I was like, well, I'm not materialistic. Like, I don't expect you to buy me something for, you know, like all the time to make me know that I'm loved. I don't expect that. But that's not what receiving gifts is all
Right.
about. It's about like those types of things, sending you playlists, you know, or however that comes across to you. And so for me, like you said, receiving gifts is just about that thought that somebody thought of me and was
Yes.
just like, oh, wow, okay, you thought of me, and that makes me feel loved because, you know, you are listening to this song or reading this book or whatever, and you thought, oh, Andrea will love that. And I'm a person that came across your mind, and that means you think about me and care about me.
Yes, I guess that would be a gift one, because
It just depends on how you interpret it.
yeah, that's true. But it makes you there's a lot of ways that we can gift to each other that has nothing to do with like what you're buying monetarily.
Exactly. Yes.
It's that thought of being like in somebody's.
a handwritten note, or those.
I
Types
love
of,
notes.
Oh my gosh, me too. Yes, I know. I do it all the time, don't I? I'm a note writer.
Yes.
Yeah, so so receiving gifts, it doesn't have to be something of a big monetary value, but it can be. I mean, some people, that's their thing. They want to know you spent a lot of money on them because that makes them feel more worthwhile. Fine. It's just, again, it's best to know what the person that you love really wants. So in taking the quiz, if somebody comes up with, like, receiving gifts, yeah, you don't want to think, well, they're just materialistic. You need to get like a better understanding of what they mean by
Yes,
that.
yeah.
So they need to be able to indicate to you, well, these are the type of gifts that when I'm thinking of this quiz, these are the type of gifts I'm thinking of.
Yes.
Because I want to make sure that I give somebody what it is they want, not what I think they want. Because if I'm going to show someone I love them, I need to be able to do it in the way that they can receive it and actually enjoy it and take that. Because one of the things that we see with the love languages is, if you don't understand my love language and I don't understand yours, then I may have been showing you love the whole time in the way that I wanted to receive it. I may have been doing things for you because I'm a quality time person, and you don't even recognize that those things are being done, and you're like, well, why doesn't he ever buy me anything or say he loves me? Or, it's like we both been showing each other love.
And then you can both get frustrated because you feel like you're not appreciated when you're trying to show love, and they're not seeing it. And when really, it's just a miscommunication. And miscommunication can happen, and you don't even have to speak. Miscommunication can happen from body language, from, things that you were doing that you feel like you're doing for a reason and somebody doesn't see it. So, you just have to have these conversations and, and figure out what it is that you guys need. Because if you don't, you're both going to be kind of trying to do things that aren't being seen.
That aren't necessarily landing.
Right.
Yeah, because I tend to find a lot of people's love languages don't match up in relationships.
No.
Weirdly enough, and of course, people also tend to get with their opposites too, which is a whole separate podcast we could do. But so we've done quality time, acts of service,
Words
gifts.
of affirmation,
Okay.
receiving gifts,
Okay, I guess we've only done 3 so far. So what do we got left? I know we got physical touch left.
physical touch.
Yep. So we'll talk about physical touch, and I don't think we've done acts of service yet, have we? Did we mention that one? I'm behind. I should
I
have made
think
a
we
list.
talked about it, but we didn't go over it. I don't know.
Nah, we'll go over it separately then.
Physical,
Okay, cool.
Physical touch is like, that was my lowest one for a while. But then, like, it also
You would think that's my lowest one. It's not.
really, yeah, it goes up and down for me. So a lot of times it is my lowest one,
Right.
but it goes up and down for me. But like, it's not like PDA all the time. It's like holding hands or touching someone's back or shoulder, or rubbing them. They're giving them a massage, or just physical touch. Doesn't have to be anything sexual. Doesn't have to be anything over the top. Just being like, hey, I acknowledge that you're there and love you. So.
Yeah, so physical touch, that is a good way to indicate it. It doesn't have to be something that's sexual, because a lot of times partners will see that who may not have physical touch as much, and they're like, oh, it just means they want to have sex all the time.
Yeah.
And, and I guess, different people have different sex drives. So if you're in a relationship with someone you don't necessarily want to have sex with, I would wonder why. But that's a whole, I guess, another
It
topic,
is a whole
too.
other topic because
we
there's a
could
lot of
discuss.
reasons you wouldn't. So.
Yeah, sure. Well, but the physical touch is one of mine. And so I would say, though, that I just enjoy closeness. Cuddling and things like that
Yeah.
are things that are enjoyable to me. It makes me feel
Yeah.
like connected, secure, safe, loved. It's a lot of so it doesn't have to be anything that's just sexual in nature at all. It's just about feeling close to somebody,
Yeah.
because that's like I don't touch a lot of people. So if I'm going to do that, it means that I like you and that I care about you and that I want to feel like, that we're cool.
Yeah.
And so I'm just not I don't do that with many people, just the people that I really care about. So physical touch to me is something that is like meaningful.
Yeah.
But for other people, you know, it may not be that meaningful to them. They may hug people and just like, well, it's just a way to say hello, but that's it. Or, you know, they don't think of it as a need to feel close to somebody.
Well, and I mentioned that physical touch was one of my lower ones, and Kindred said, you know, you would think it would be one of my lower ones because she doesn't even really like hugs, you know. And for me, it was one of my lower ones because for a lot of my life, I didn't have a lot of physical boundaries with people. And a lot of that has to do with trauma. So people who have experienced trauma have a harder time sometimes with physical touch, even if they, enjoy it with people that they love. Like even if they want the person that they love to grab their hand or whatever, it's still a lot harder and anxiety ridden for people who have experienced trauma because of the trauma that they've experienced. And so, sometimes physical touch is harder.
Yeah, it absolutely.
you not hear me very well?
It is good. It's better if you lean in. So yeah, it can be, especially for people that have had bad experiences.
Yeah.
Yes, and that's one of the things that can be so conflicting. Is if that is someone's love language, but they also have a traumatic response to
Yes.
it.
So if it can be that back and forth. You're like, I want that and I need it, but at the same time you're scared of it or you get anxious about it. So I mean, that can cause issues too within a relationship, obviously, because that physical touch, if you've got somebody who's kind of like who needs it and wants it, but they're kind of like, from it, it's difficult to get through as a person, just that person, and then as a couple.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, it really does take a lot of effort and time to get to the point where if somebody was hurt with physical touch, but it's also their love language, to break through those barriers. And it takes a lot of communication and patience.
And trust, yeah.
And
Consistency.
And then if you have another, like if there's a partner in the relationship who also has physical touch as theirs, and they try to touch you and you recoil, they're
Yeah.
like, well, they don't like physical touch. Well,
Yeah.
that may not be the case. It could just
Exactly.
be certain experiences that the person has had. So again, it boils down to communication as a
Yes.
way to try to determine why this is happening. So then the other one what we didn't go into was acts of service.
Yeah.
Okay. So acts of service is more like I'm going to do things for you that you would think of as being like showing that you care. So that may be like going out and doing some yard work or making something that represents something important to you.
Or going and filling up your gas tank, or you know what I mean? Just those types
Yeah,
of
it's a
things.
very dad way of doing things.
It's a very dad way of showing love at
Yeah.
acts of service. type.
Changed your oil. What more do you want?
Right.
Yeah, my dad, that is his love language.
Yeah, I thought of your
1,000%.
dad and my papa whenever I
Oh,
said acts of service. That's kind of the things that they do for.
Absolutely, they're kindred spirits.
They are, yeah.
Every time I say that now.
Kindred's like, hello, I'm over here.
But yeah, and it is a sweet love language in a way, because it's like in a big way, because having somebody anticipate practical things that you need to have done, and like caring enough to make sure that you've got what you need to get somewhere safely or whatever. But if that's your primary love language, and let's say that your partner is like, needs something else besides just the
Yeah.
practicalities of like handling business, which is great, but like sometimes you need more. It's so important to kind of be able to talk about these different ways of expressing it.
Yeah.
And it just made me think of my dad and my mom, and they're very different love languages, the two of them.
Yeah, and so the hard part becomes when somebody is doing love languages for you that are not your love languages, especially if they fall toward the bottom. Like buying gifts for me, you buy me things and every now and then, and I'm like, oh, that's nice. And I think part of you sometimes is like wanting to see me excited.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so I have to like somewhat manufacture excitement. But to me, it's just another thing. It's like, oh, okay, yeah, that's cool. And I appreciate it. It's nice, but it does not create warm, fuzzy feelings inside of me. She was like, oh, she was thinking about me. I already know she thinks about me. I'm not a materialistic person. So and I know that other people receiving gifts, I know we said they're not always materialistic, but I don't necessarily feel loved by receiving something, and I'm not materialistic. So when you get me something, it's like, oh, that's cool, but it would have to be something.
You appreciate it, but you're not. It doesn't like make you go, oh, you know.
Oh yeah, it doesn't give me flutters or
Right.
anything like that. I'm a lot more, I guess, simplistic on that sense. I like words of affirmation and physical touch. Those things for me are, if you do those, that's fine. The quality time thing, I like quality time. It's probably like my third one or something like that. But if I get something in those first three, then I feel good. But like acts of service and gifts, I don't get much from. So if you do something like that for me, I have to like manufacture being like,
I take that back on the acts of service. I think if I stopped doing acts of service for you, you would be like, what's up with this?
oh, I definitely think something would be off
Yeah.
because that's just normally some of the things that you do.
Yeah.
But I don't usually like, well, she didn't do this, like today, like she normally does, or like she didn't make the nice things that she decorates my drawer with, or she didn't write something that was cute, or she didn't like send me this. And
That'd be receiving gifts. So yeah, and then, okay, yeah, that's true.
yeah, so if you didn't do them, I would know something is off with
Yeah.
you because
Those are some of my main love languages that I do. Yeah.
And I very much appreciate them because I know what they mean.
Yeah.
So if I saw them missing, I would like, okay, yeah, something's going on.
Yeah.
But I don't sit around like longing for those types of things. It's like if other things went missing from the relationship, then I would not only think something is wrong, but I would also be like starved for affection.
Right, yeah.
Or I would feel like that you weren't giving me the things that I feel like I need in order to feel connected.
Yeah.
So when someone does something for you, you have to find that appreciation in it, and you have to know what it represents and means, but you don't have to expect to feel what the other person's feeling by doing that for you.
Yeah.
If it's not your love language, you're not going to feel it.
Right, and I had to explain to you as well because you're not as big on receiving gifts, what it meant to me to give them. And so, like,
Yes.
you had to understand that because we did have that conversation earlier on in our marriage. Was like, he had that conversation, like, you don't have to do this for me. I'm like, but I want to. Like, that's part of me telling you that I love you. Like, I don't have to always spend money for it or anything, but I do need to actively have something to give to you because that's, for me, I just would feel wrong if it was like Valentine's Day or birthday or Christmas and I didn't give him something to show him, no matter what it is, just something to show him that, here, I love you and this is for you because I thought about you. To me, that would be wrong. To him, he would be like, oh, I don't have to spend money or she doesn't have to worry about me, right?
Mm-hmm.
He's not worried about that. But for me, if I feel like I need to, or it feels like I'm not giving him something.
Right.
Yeah, so if somebody does something for you like that, you have to accept it as an act of love. But don't get upset if you don't feel the same way. And you can't get upset with the other person if they don't feel the same way you do. So if you need them to do something and you communicate that and they follow through with it because they know that that's something that's meaningful to you, they're not going to have the same emotions you do because it is inherently meaningful to you. They're doing it as a means of, well, I want this person to feel love, so I'm going to go ahead and do that. But it may not match up. We're fortunate that we have a few things that match up, and we got a few things that don't. But the things we match up on are great, and so the things that we don't match up on,
We compromise.
We've communicated around it most of the time. What I think is really hard is in the relationships where it's like nothing matches up, where you got one that's receiving gifts and one that's physical touch, and theirs is like all receiving gifts and theirs is all physical touch, and the other person's got the exact opposite on theirs. Those are the really hard ones to work with because what I try to do is like if I give someone the quiz, it's like, okay, your first ones don't match up. Let's go to your second ones. Maybe there's some common ground here. Nope. Oh, okay. Well, there's common ground in your fourth one, maybe? The things you don't really... I'll think this is not going to work. So those relationships are really difficult, and unfortunately, they're more common than, I think, ones where people actually do match up.
And so if you have the opposite ones, you need to figure that out and then try to figure out how you can do that, how you can make that work if you can.
Yeah, sure.
How do I make this work?
Gatekeepers are pretty similar. We both both got like a really low on gift giving.
Yeah, you're
We're
both-
like whatever about gifts, but I think his top one was quality time and mine's words of affirmation.
Yeah.
However, all of mine are 24%, like across the board.
Oh, so you're pretty even on everything then.
Except for giving gifts.
Yeah.
It's 3% on that. So
Hey, everything, yeah, that's good though, because if you're pretty well even across
Yeah.
the board, it's hard to go wrong.
Yeah.
Just don't think about buying me anything, and the other stuff works pretty well. So yeah, and there, you'll find that about people too. Some people are way more flexible in what they find to be a way to show love. And that is a good thing about that quiz. It kind of helps you understand how strong
Yeah.
of a preference that your partner or you have for some of these things. And so that way you know, it's like, well, the first one, I don't really do that well, but they have the next one down, I can do that. And I feel like that comes natural. And they have a pretty high percentage on it. So that's a way to go about doing it. And we both match up there.
Yeah.
So you try to find the places where you match up.
And then you try to make an active effort to
Yep.
do the ones that you don't.
Yes.
If they're high.
Yeah.
And so that's how you compromise.
Like I've gotten you some really good gifts over the years,
Yes,
but it's
you
like
have.
every 3 or 4 years I get you a really good gift. And then I was like, okay, I'm good for about 3 or 4 years. And then I'll get creative and do another one again. But it's like it takes about that long for me to cycle back through to think about getting something creative. Because most of the time when I think gifts, I think, okay, I got to spend money on something.
But that is not always the case.
I know this. I'm still trying.
You're a very good writer.
Yeah.
That's one of my favorite words of affirmation.
I've written you things.
Receiving gifts.
Well,
That's-
see, the way I look at it too, though, is if I write you things all the time, then it's not
Yeah,
as
it's not as
meaningful. So if I do it every now and then,
Yeah.
it's like, oh yeah, I forgot he can write,
Yeah.
and it's so lovely.
Yeah.
And then we get to frame it and put it up.
Yeah.
So we have all these ways that we can show and receive love. I'm curious though, can we think of like any at all? Oh, we're about out of time, aren't we?
We are.
Let's forget that. No, there are no other love languages. That's it. Sorry.
Being seen and understood
No,
would be mine
doesn't
more
count.
than anything. What do you think? What would yours be?
Well, I was going to throw it out there that I heard one that wasn't on the list that I thought was really good. It was the ability to be vulnerable with somebody.
Oh, yes.
and-
Yeah.
Yes.
and
That's
to-
cool. That is a good one.
Yeah.
I take what I said back. That's a really good one, and I should add it. All right. Well, if you're having trouble, like not understanding your own like desires in a relationship or working with your partner, we can help you with that. Reach out to us at Affinity Counseling Services, AFFINITY on Facebook. Contact our Arkansas office at 870-324-5122 or our Kennett, Missouri office at 573-840-0440 or reach us at counselingwithaffinity.com. Next week, we will be talking about communication, nourishment. What is it called here?
Be the rain, not the thunder. Communicating to nourish, not harm.
Oh, sweet.
So
That's-
we'll be talking about communication styles and conflict styles
all right. We'll see you next week or this week.
this week,
Thursday.
Thursday.
See
Yeah.
ya.
Bye.